Well, hello. Welcome to my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. This is Dean Tenney. Today, we're going to be doing a little 15 minutes on put down. Put down. And the reason we're doing it, calling it put down, is because put down is a great memory aid for puts. We're going to find out here in a bit. Put down, when the market price is down from the strike price, the contract is going to have intrinsic value, put contract, and we're going to find out break even and put contracts, when you're long or short, doesn't matter, is going to be put down strike price less premium. Please like, share, and subscribe. What we're doing is these little 15-minute versions of which are longer lectures. I'll put a link in the this lecture to show you, where the narrative hour version of this is instead of 15 minutes. This is put down, so you can imagine the next 15-minute one will be call up. So this is put down. So let's get our slides and let's get busy here. I'm going to be posting moving forward 2022. It's our second year at the channel, and I'll be posting Tuesdays 3 p.m. So that's when things will be uploaded. We had kind of a haphazard, upload schedule in 2021. So Tuesday 3 p.m. subscribe, because that's when you'll find either a new lecture or new practice questions, whatever the case may be. All right, let's get going here. Now, I'm a big believer in this, which is the options matrix. And here we're going to be focusing today in this 15 minutes on the put contracts. We have two types of contracts, calls and puts. You can either buy them or sell them. So we have four basic option positions. So what I'm going to be showing you here in this 15 minutes is that when we're long a put, as you can see over here, let me get my annotation tool. I'm going to be showing you that over here, when we're long a put, we paid a premium. We have a choice to sell the stock at the strike price. P.S. The reason I tried to put down is because that's the put contract is the one that kind of most people get confused about. I don't know if that makes you feel better, but, put down. People, I don't get it. I buy it to sell it. Well, when you buy a put contract, that gives you a choice to sell the stock. Those are different its, right? So when you buy a put contract, buy and long mean the same thing. If you're selling the stock, you're bearish. That means you want the stock to go down. The max gain is when the stock goes all the way from zero, from the strike price less the premium to zero. And you're kind of a smart bear, because if you're wrong here, you're just going to lose your premium. So we're on this bottom side here, and then I'm going to show you a short put. If we're going to have putters, we got to have puttees. Again, people get hung up. They like, I sell it to buy it. Those are different its. When you sell a put contract, you've received the premium. You're obligated to buy the stock at the strike price. You're bullish. And your max gain is the premium. You agree to be a potential victim. Nobody victimizes you. Nobody makes you perform on the contract. You get to keep the money. Neener, neener, neener. Now, if you're wrong, you're going to have to buy worthless stock at the strike price. And if you're buying worthless stock at the strike price, you're going to get to keep the premium. So strike price less premium, break even, all the way to zero. So here's just a visual representation of what it looks like in a put contract put down. I'm not asking about long or short here. I'm just showing you the put contract itself. And if we're looking at, we'll just call this Apple. If we are looking at an Apple 185 put, if the market price of Apple is below 185, the contract has intrinsic value. For example, if Apple is 170, this contract has 15 points of intrinsic value. Now, you can do it from the long perspective or the short perspective, but let's do it from the long perspective. If I have a choice to sell Apple at 185 and Apple's at 170, the contract I'm holding that gives me a choice to do that is worth 15 points. Another thing you could use besides put down, the market price is down from the strike price, is the contract likely to be exercised? Is it likely somebody wants to, sell Apple at 185 when it's at 170? The answer is yes. If the answer to that question is yes, that means the contract has intrinsic value. Now, in terms of the marketplace, the contract is typically going to have a premium that reflects the intrinsic value and the time value. That's going to equal the premium. Again, I'll link to the full-blown lecture. There are 4 options lectures, narrative lectures on options. This isn't one of them. The 4 are, the first one is nomenclature, terminology, vocabulary. The second one is what we're talking about now, the 4 basic option positions. And then lecture 3 is stock plus options. and lecture 4 is advanced option strategy, straddles and spreads. This is just a carve out of that topic and do a 15-minute overview of puts. Now, I highly recommend that if you're going to be looking at a put contract, particularly put contracts, I highly recommend that below the leg, you write down what you're looking at. And so when I'm long a put, I have a choice. Let me get a different color here. To sell at the strike price. XP means strike price. Yeah, particularly on puts, I just want to keep that straight. So here I bought an Apple June 185 put at 9. So that is a choice to sell the Apple at 185. Now, again, if you're taking the SIE, I'm going to put this in the SIE playlist, the Series 7 playlist, and the Series 65 playlist, because all those series exams, you are held accountable for this. But, past the SIE, you can simply memorize break-evens. But here I paid 9 points to be able to sell the Apple at 185. Again, people all the time get hung up. They go, Dean, I don't get it. I buy it to sell it. Those are different ends. When you buy a put contract, dollars out, 9 points, you've established the choice to sell the stock at 185. And so the break even, if you're going to memorize it, put down. That's why we're calling that our great memory aid. Put down. You're going to take the strike price minus the premium equals the break even. The break even is the most important thing. I mean, break even is when you neither make nor lose money. Nobody is, trading options to break even, but that's what, where you neither make nor lose. Now you can simply memorize that. What I mean by that is you could simply memorize that it's 185 minus 9. You tell me on the test, 176, and you have the answer and you move on. Now, once you get the break even, I highly recommend that you make a little arrow to remind yourself where you want the stock in relationship to that. And here you're bearish. But let me first illustrate to you that indeed that is the break even. If we buy Apple at 176, and we stick it to somebody at 185, please note, we would end up with the same dollars out as dollars in. And that's what break even is. Break even is where you neither make nor lose money. So I'm just illustrating that indeed that is the break even. Oh, you got to be able to do arithmetic. By the way, I'm a big fan of the T and contract specifications. The reason I'm a fan of the T is because if you get the T, you can just shop the answer set. Let me show you what I mean by that. I call this the initial setup. There's your initial setup. And then you could just shop the answer set A, B, C, D, knowing you're looking for a number that if you plug it in would make the columns balance, because that's what break even is. Now, max gain. Again, you can memorize it is the break even to 0 or strike price less premium to 0 or 176 to 0, however you want to get there. Break evens are expressed per share, but max gain or loss is the total amount. I highly recommend you do things on a per share basis, but let me just illustrate that again using the T tracking the money in and out. So if I paid 9 points and I can stick the Apple to somebody at 185, I would like the stock to be worthless. If I could get the stock out of the trash can and stick it to somebody at 185, they say, Dean, you're making me pay 185 for worthless stock. I say, indeed I am. If you didn't want to do that, you shouldn't have collected the money. That is my best case scenario. And I recommend you do things on a per share basis. I'm just now netting that. And then just remember that you're looking at one contract governing 100 shares. So then you would just multiply once. If you don't do it per share, then you're gonna have to multiply throughout, the thing, which I think is kind of a mess. So our max gain, we're bearish, is when the stock goes to 0. Now, I think you're kind of a smart bear because, as bears go, if you're wrong, options are about floors and ceilings. The floor here is when Apple goes to 0. The ceiling is at 185. If Apple is 185 or higher, the contract is going to expire worthless. And so you lose your premium. By the way, that's true of any options strategy. Again, that's 9 points. But remember, we're talking about a contract. So that would actually be 9 times 1 times 100. And so the maximum loss here is $900. All right, so there's what we need to know about a long put. We need to know what the break even is, whether we're bullish or bearish, max gain, max loss. Now, here I think of the people who are long the put as the putters. And if we're going to have putters, we got to have put ease. We're going to have putters, we got to have put ease. And so again, in terms of strategy, this is just the opposite side of the contract. I highly recommend that every time you get an option, before you do anything underneath the leg, right, what are you looking at? You're looking at an obligation to buy the stock at the strike price. If you didn't want to do that, you shouldn't have collected the premium. I'll put that in green because you're collecting the money. And again, very important, you can do your initial setup, whether you use pluses or minuses or debits or credits or dollars out or dollars in, whatever method you're using. You know, you need to be able to get the break even. Now you can either memorize again, and that's why we call the lecture put down. You can just memorize put down. Break even is when it's going to be strike price less premium. It's the same break even whether you're long or short. It's just a matter where you want it in relationship to that number. So here it's 185 minus 9. It's again, the break even is 176. Now, if you're going to memorize break evens, which is not a bad way to go, I would just warn you, remember, you need to know whether you're bullish or bearish in relationship to that number. And so, whoa, here I want to not have perform in the contract. I want the stock Apple to be 185 or higher so the contract can expire. Okay, let me show you how we set that up as a break even to the T. I would highly recommend, if you're using the T, right, you get your practice question from your vendor, that you get out your scratch paper, and the first thing you do is a setup, and you say, okay, I collected $9 in, and that's your initial setup. You say, okay, and what I've obliged myself to do is buy the stock at 185, and then I could shop my answer set on my question, and I'm looking for a number that if I plug it in offset, it's called offset, that it would make the columns balance. I'm just illustrating that indeed, if somebody makes me pay 185 for the stock, and the stock is worth 176, I'm going to lose 9 points on the stock, but I got 9 points in advance. And again, I'm just showing that indeed that is the break even, because that's what break even is. Same dollars out as dollars in. Nobody does things to break even. People do things to make money. And the best case here is I agree to be a potential victim. Nobody victimizes me. Apple is 185 or higher. Contract expires. I go neener, neener, neener. I get to keep the 9 points. Again, that 9 points is 9 on one contract, each contract governing 100 shares. So my max gain here is $900. Again, let me show you what that looks like in the T. There is my 9. And the best case scenario for me is I agree to be a potential victim. Nobody victimizes me. Contract expires worthless. I see neener, neener, neener. So that's my maximum gain. Maximum loss is when somebody makes me pay 185 for the stock and the stock is worthless. That would be my worst case scenario. And again, you can either memorize, by the way, if you start memorizing stuff, that's a perfectly acceptable strategy on SIE. But if, on 7, that's going to be a difficult, because there's going to be like 20 questions on options. And 65, I think it's a reasonable kind of thing to decide you're just going to memorize stuff. But if you're going to memorize this, the maximum loss is going to be the break even to 0, when the stock goes from the break even all the way to 0. Or another way to think of that is strike price less premium to 0. Or you can just net the columns. A lot of ways to go. Sometimes I think that makes it even more confusing. But what we can do is just say, okay, well, if somebody makes me pay 185 for worthless stock, I lose 185, but I got 9 up front. And I'm just illustrating in the T what the break even looks like. Now, if you're going on to the Series 7, I would recommend that you track money and you understand options, because at that point, nobody can trick you. That was just my warning, saying that I've at my 15-minute limit that I'm trying to get these carve out lectures done in. So I almost made my mark, but it doesn't, the narrative lectures are over an hour, but there's a pause button. So you can always hit the pause button. But, I'm trying to give you 15-minute, I've had requests for 15-minute lectures, and so the channel's responsive. So that's what I'm trying to do here. All right. So if you think that's a worthwhile thing, hit like, give me a comment, say, Dean, carry on, because who knows, I feel a little rushed. Anyways, let me show you what that looks like visually. Some people are visual. And so let me show you what that looks like as a visual representation. The lecture was called Put Down, to remind us of two things: that put contracts have intrinsic value when the market price is down, and the break even is strike price less premium. So our break even in this 15 minutes was 176. And that's the same whether you're long or short. What the distinction has been is, where do you want it in relationship to that break even? And we said, if you're going to buy the put, you're a bear and you want the stock. Let me put that in green. You want the stock to be below that number. And if you're bull, you want it above that number. So it's the same break even. It's just a matter of where you want it in relationship to that. So let me just boom. Boom. Let me go over here. So that's what that looks like. Let me get out my annotation tool. And so here, so you only have one break even to kind of memorize. Now, in terms of loss, let me get this going here. Let me put that in red. And that's what that looks like in terms of a visual representation. Let me get out my annotation tool. And so that's what that kind of looks like. But there's a ceiling here, 185. At 185 or higher, the put expires. The guy who's long, right? This guy over here, let's just put that. This is the long version over here. And this is the short guy over here. We have two types of contracts, calls and puts. You can buy or sell them. And so this is the long put. And as we said, we're going to have putters, we're going to have putties. There's our short put. All right, so like, share, subscribe. Like I say, give me some feedback if you like these carve outs with 15-minute lectures instead of 45, an hour, hour and a half, which is matching your study block. Just let me know. Let me clear that. I was originally going to call this simply put, but I decided to put down. What we've worked on in terms of today is these two parts of the matrix. And I'm going to call the next lecture call up. So this is put down. The companion 15-minute lecture will be call up. Excuse me. And as I mentioned, I was originally going to call this simply put instead of put down, but I thought there were just too many memory aids that go with put down. All right. So like I say, every Tuesday, 3 p.m., we'll be putting up new content. That's the publishing schedule of the channel going forward. So Look for next Tuesday to find something new for you as a subscriber. Bye-bye.